Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. How are you all? I'm so happy to be here with you today because I'm doing a little segment for the next 4 weeks called Sip and Talk. I've been working very closely with Johnnie Walker since their first woman campaign, which celebrated a year of women breaking boundaries. In 2020, by the way, did you know there were so many firsts for women? There was that first statue of female trailblazers in Central Park. It's on Poets Row and you all have to check it out. Also, the first woman to be named the CEO of a major bank, Go City Bank, and needless to say, the first female vice president. So in keeping with the celebration and to properly honor Women's History Month, which is so great, and I think every month should be Women's History Month, I'm partnering again with my friends at Johnnie Walker by Johnnie Walker to celebrate women. So as I mentioned, every Thursday, hi everybody, I'm going to be sitting down with another cool woman, and we've got another special treat because we're going to be talking to female mixologists every Thursday as well. So for those of you who know that I am on this 21-day reset, and I have stayed away, and I've been doing really well, by the way. I've stayed away from sugar, dairy, and wheat, and I've been eating very healthy, but I talked to Dr. Hyman, and he's gonna let me have everything in moderation, one cocktail once a week to celebrate these incredible women. Hi, is that Kay or Kathleen Foley? Hi, everybody. Anyway, I'm so glad you guys are with me because it's going to be a lot of fun and we're going to have really cool women every week. And my hope is that we are going to be able to inspire you all and inspire other young women to kind of hear how these women got to where they got to. And hopefully there'll be some important life lessons for everybody watching or for some young women you might know. Okay, so our first guest is Shannon Mustipher. Shannon is the first Black American mixologist to publish a cocktail recipe book in over a century, and she's also the recipient of the 2020 Tales of the Cocktail Pioneer Award. She's the founder of Women Who Tiki, which sounds a lot of fun. It's a community of female mixologists and tropical cocktail enthusiasts. Sign me up for that, preferably on a beach with a drink with a little umbrella. So I'm really excited. Shannon's gonna meet us and meet all of you and hang out with me for a few minutes and teach us how to make one of her signature cocktails, my one cocktail of the week. So Shannon, is Shannon there? Let's see if Shannon's here. She's from she's from Charleston rather. She went to RISD, which is so interesting, and while she was a barista, she decided she really fell in love with making cocktails. And I was surprised to learn that most mixologists these days are women, but they're not getting the plum jobs like a lot of the men are. So we're gonna deal with Shannon, and then we're gonna talk to a really exciting guest, Elaine Welteroth, who's super cool. You guys are gonna love Elaine if you don't know her already. She's really been a trailblazer in so many ways. Shannon, where are you? I think Shannon may still be making her cocktail, you guys. Hello, Shannon?
Katie.
Shannon, are you there?
I'm here. How are
Hi.
you? I've overcome my tech challenges. So excited to meet you, as well as to kick off Women's History Month and all the good things with you. I'm so excited. How are you doing?
I'm so excited to meet you, Shannon, because I know you live in Brooklyn, but you're from Charleston originally. I love your kind of story of how you became a mixologist, that you were at RISD, at the Rhode Island School of Design, and you decided, you know, I love art and I love painting, but you decided you wanted to become a mixologist instead. How did that happen?
So the big picture behind that was I wanted to make my creativity and what I could contribute more accessible, right? And so art is a great nurturing experience, but there are numerous people in populations that don't have access to museums and galleries. And I was like, oh man, I just want to make sure that what I'm putting out there, people can get to a little easier, and drinks are very easy, right? Compared to that. So I still have so much love for the arts. right now I'm in the midst of redecorating an office, and I'm enamored, but I just wanted my work to be more accessible. And that's why I kind of went in the direction of hospitality, because anybody can go out to a restaurant, whereas depending where you are, going out to a gallery may not be an option.
Well, I love the idea that a lot of women are getting into this, but I was saying before you jumped on, Shannon, that a lot of men are getting sort of, here, I'm just going to move this up a little bit. Yeah, there you go. A lot of men are getting kind of the better jobs. How are we going to help more women get in better positions in the whole field of mixology?
Okay, so I'm glad you bring this up, Katie. And before we do that, I just got to fangirl a little bit. I'm not prone to fangirling, but I'm like, oh my God, Katie. So I just got to put it out there for you as well as everyone that's watching. So what I would say in regards to women that want to really make an impact out there this month or going forward is that you got to tap into your inner power and realize that we have a uniqueness that's built into us by our creator, whoever you want to call that name, right? But you realize it's bigger than you, and that there's a reason you feel inspired or maybe agitated, but it's like there's a reason why you want to do what you want to do. And so I encourage every woman out there, every person out there to just pursue your goal, pursue your dream, and just go for it. Because you don't know, who's going to be touched by it. You don't know. Just do it.
Well, it's true. And, there are a lot of obstacles in the way. There always are, but you have to forge ahead and figure out a way around them. And, but we're going to have a cocktail because this is your specialty cocktail, I understand. Shannon, what is it called? And can you teach me how to make it?
Yeah, so this cocktail is the Silky Smooth, and it's inspired by my experience of putting my first Mai Tai rendition on the menu at Gladys Caribbean, which is where I got started as a mixologist. And I was reticent at first because I didn't really know tiki. I didn't know if it was going to fit into the bar program, but people were like so into it. And it was also really good for me to learn about, tiki is not a taboo thing. It has a lot of good merits to it, and it's been very inspirational over the years to experiment with this classic, Trader Vic template.
Oh yeah, my dad would always take us to Trader Vic's in Washington D.C. as kind of a rite of passage when we were young teenagers, and I remember getting a drink with a gardenia in it. It wasn't alcoholic at the time, but it was so special, So tell me, what do I do, Shannon?
Okay, so what you're going to do is very simple here. So I'm doing a little bit of a riff, inspired in part by Jane Danger, who works with Pernod Ricard currently, but she was a program manager at Mother of Pearl. She basically put a different spin on tropical cocktails about 3 years ago, and is a total inspiration. So what you can do is start off with your citrus. Okay, so I want everybody to know at home that it's important to start with the sweet and the sour when you're building a cocktail, because that gives you an opportunity to make sure you got that right balance that you enjoy. Because once you get the liquor in there, it's too long, right? So we're going to start off with 3/4 of an ounce
Of what?
Fresh pressed lemon juice.
Okay, got it. Is that this thing?
I hope so. I don't know what it's saying. But yeah, you want to start with the citrus juice first. And then in the case of what we're doing, it's a 3/4 ounce of syrup that's called orgeat. Orgeat is a nut-based syrup, so originally almond. That may not be for everybody. You can do macadamia, you can kind of twist it up a little bit. But the whole idea is that that nut element gives you that body and viscosity to kind of like create the longevity for the drink as a whole. So I'm going to add 3/4 of an ounce.
Okay.
To the original template. And then to make it more fun for us tonight, I'm adding Dawn's Mix. So Dawn's Mix is, it's basically a compound syrup. It is grapefruit juice combined with cinnamon syrup.
I hope
And
I'm using the right one.
I think you got that sent to you. I'm doing it a little more like, you know, on the original template, but the whole
I'm
idea
not
is
hearing
that,
you. Hold on.
oh,
Can
can you hear
everybody?
me
Oh,
now?
there we go. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so
Okay.
Orange Mix is like a compound syrup where you take a citrus and honey and spices. In this case, there's cinnamon as well as cloves that go into that honey syrup, and then you compound it with grapefruit juice, which gives that acidity to kind of brighten up those elements that you'll find in the spices. So
Okay.
I'm going to add an ounce and a half.
Smells delicious.
It's good. It's so fun.
And this smells very, very spicy, like clovey. Like
Well,
it has
that's so good. Well, some people have a little kind of shy away from charcoal cocktails being it's going to be too sweet, but those elements that you picked out kind of tone it down a little bit so it's easier to take.
Okay, and by the way, someone's asking me, I said I'm having one cocktail a week for Women's History Month, everybody, but keep on going with what you're doing and just enjoy this because it's such a treat. And this is a pretty light, fresh cocktail, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the idea. I don't like sweet drinks. They're kind of like off limits things for me. I'm a wine girl. I like things really dry.
Yeah.
I was a whiskey fanatic prior to getting into the rum and tiki space. In fact, one of my favorite birthdays, when maybe I wasn't legal, was
Yeah.
Johnnie Walker Blue. So that being said, the last step is an ounce and a half of Johnnie Walker. And what this does is just like a lot of spice in this liquid that will awaken the spice elements in the cinnamon and the clove that's in the Dawn's Mix. And that gives that acidity element in the...
And then go like this, right, Shannon?
Yes. So I'm going to add a big cube. I'm going to shake it up. So let's put this, shake it together.
Put it in the big one?
Yes. So
Okay.
Katie, loving it. All right, so basically what you really want to see on the other end is that there's a lot of foam in there because that means that you have woken
Hold
the
on,
spirit.
Shannon. Hold on.
Oh,
Hold on. Here. Help me out here, would you? Okay.
so the whole idea of shaking hard is that make sure that everything is together, integrated, and so all of the flavors are harmonious.
Wait. Oh, good. Okay. Okay, here we go.
Boom.
Go like this. And then pour it over this.
Yeah, and I'm going to top it off with some crushed ice that I prepared ahead of time. It's all good, my dear.
I'm not very good at this. Okay, wait.
Okay.
And put some ice.
Yeah, so I had some ice that I put together a little bit beforehand.
That's so pretty. Okay, and then put some mint.
Yeah. The whole idea is that we want everything to be as cold as possible, so I'm going to grab some mint to add some aroma to this experience that we have. So the
What do you
original
guys think?
recipe.
And I have one of these.
Yo, I totally did not get my orchid delivery, so I'm gonna
Well,
have to make
these are
something.
pansies, but look how pretty that drink is, everybody. It's beautiful. All right, cheers, Shannon.
Eddie, thank you so much.
Here's to Lady Mixologist. You go. Hi, Marshall Pike. Anyway, cheers. Thank you so much, Shannon. So nice to meet you. I hope I get to meet you one of these days in person.
Never say never, and I
Okay.
really appreciate you. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the stream. I'll be watching.
And happy Women's History Month. Let's keep making history, Shannon.
That's the plan.
Cheers.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Okay, now that's delicious. That is really delicious. Thank you, Shannon. Love it. If you guys want the recipe, by the way, it's going to be in our newsletter, Wake Up Call, tomorrow. And also I'll post it on Instagram as well. It's light, it's refreshing, it's delicious. Just like my next guest, Elaine Welteroth. Thank you, Shannon. See you later. Bye. So Elaine, I don't know if you all know Elaine, but yes, Katie the mixologist, that's me. Elaine is an incredibly impressive young woman who's done so much already in the course of her young life. She was just there. Here we go. No, you didn't highlight her. Hold on, Elaine. We're getting there. It takes a village. Elaine took part in the Jane Walker by Johnnie Walker campaign that celebrated women's first. They were nice enough to include me. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, Katie.
Look how beautiful you look. How are you?
I'm better now. I could even be even better if I had one of those cocktails in front of me. You guys, I'm jealous over here. I'm still at work, so I don't have my cocktail, but I do have my drink ready for later.
Oh, good, good. Well, you know what? It was really fun meeting Shannon because I didn't realize, Elaine, that so many mixologists now are women. But just as in so many other fields, they're not getting diploma assignments. They're not getting put in positions where they're going to be, it's kind of the top establishment. So we have to work on that. But let's talk about you, Elaine. Look how pretty you look. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you. I'm doing so well. I'm so happy to see you again. We're like twice in 30 days. We had you on the show at the talk, and you guys, Katie Couric, who is literally, I've told her this 1,000 times, but one of my journalist hero, she was our first guest on the talk in person. It was so cool to have you, Katie. I wish you could come on all the time. It'd be so fun.
It's such a, I have to say, Elaine, you have such a nice group of ladies on the talk. I really enjoyed being there. I love Amanda, who's also a new person on the talk. Sorry, I'm just setting this up. And all the ladies, I had such a good time. But I want to tell everyone watching a little bit about you, because you are also a fellow Jane Walker first. Elaine Welteroth was the first Black beauty director in Condé Nast history. She's continued to break boundaries. She's a New York Times best-selling journalist. We're going to talk to her about author, rather. I'm going to talk to her about her book. She's an award-winning journalist, former editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue at a very young age. She is one of the co-hosts of the talk, as you all heard. So she has done a ton of things in her young life, including getting married over the summer. And I'm going to show some pictures of that in a moment, because I loved your doorstep, your doorstep wedding, which was so awesome. And you guys look so amazing. But tell me a little. Well, actually, tell me, you've been keeping so busy during quarantine. What you've been doing everything, Elaine. Just run us down a typical day in the life of Elaine Welteroth.
Oh man. Well, I love that you called it a doorstep wedding. I feel like we should make that a thing, like, quarantine doorstep weddings. But what have I been up to during the quarantine? I mean, I got married in the middle of a pandemic. Highly
Can we show, we're able to actually show one of your pictures, Elaine, while you talk about this? I mean, technology is incredible, isn't it? So we figured out how we can, but you can keep talking. Adriana, who works with me, who's 24, and she knows how to do all this stuff, figured out, but maybe she didn't. So But anyway, tell me about the wedding and why you guys decided to go ahead and do it at your Brooklyn house.
Well, you know, gosh, I mean, I think like so many people, you had all these plans, right? We had these plans for our lives, and suddenly we all were just put on pause, and I kind of was faced with this decision of whether we would postpone or just say, you know what, let's save the date and let's make it work, and let's do the best we can with what we have. And honestly, it was the best day ever, because it was edited down to the absolute essential, and it was really about what matters the most, which was just celebrating our love in the simplest way, you know. And I remember when I finally got the idea, oh yeah, we
couldn't get it to work, but I can just show this picture. Those flowers are just amazing, Elaine.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Lewis Miller. That was the one thing I was like, if I'm going to spend money on anything, it's going to be the flowers. We're going to transform this stoop into this divine romantic altar. And that's what we did. We only had 10 people there. They were all white. They wore their masks, their gloves. Everyone stayed like 10 feet apart. But the community got to participate from their stoops. They brought out pots and pans, and they were banging them, and they were holding up signs. It was like a community love fest, and I feel like it happened right on time when people needed to be uplifted and people needed to feel like there was a reason to celebrate something. And it was so special. And literally, the dress I wore was sitting in my closet. It was like labelless dress. Everything was just.
In fact, we have a tight shot. I think this is the most beautiful picture. I mean, they're all spectacular, but there's one where you look absolutely radiant. No, I want the one where it's kind of close. Oh, they're so funny. The tight shot of Elaine. Oh, here it is. I think this is such a beautiful picture, everybody. Look at that. Is that not gorgeous? You're so full of joy. It's so incredible, Elaine.
Thank you. I highly recommend a doorstep wedding. So if anyone wants to talk to me about that separately, we could talk about that. But yeah, no, I mean, I've been keeping busy throughout the quarantine, and also enjoying this time to be still, and in a lot of ways that I kind of hadn't been able to before. You know, we're as ambitious women. We're always ripping and running. We're on the grind. And I think it was really nice in some ways to have a period of stillness, to really do some self-reflection, to really kind of reprioritize our life and you know, remember what is really important, and make that the focal point, and kind of redirect a little bit. And actually, that self-reflection led me to this big move across the country to LA from Brooklyn, and in the middle of the pandemic. And, you know, I came out to LA, frankly, for more life, for more sunshine. And I thought, if we're going to be at home for the foreseeable future, let me just, you know, let me make a move that feels that, and move into a place that feels really good to be in. And then I got this job, and it came out of nowhere, and the rest is history. I've joined the ladies of the talk, and it's been one of those divine assignments that I never saw coming, but it feels really like such a blessing to have a platform like this one, especially in a moment like this, where there's so much happening in the world every single day that we all just need someone to process it with, you know.
Definitely.
And
I love, and you guys have real conversations about important things, which is so nice. But one thing I really enjoy about the talk is it's a very civilized conversation. There's a lot of mutual respect. You guys aren't at each other. It doesn't, you know, it's kind of not that engagement through enragement, and it's not, it's not kind of, people don't seem as angry. And I like the idea of actually really being able to express yourself and learn together, because I think we're so like this in today's culture, that to be able to kind of understand and to listen, I think we've lost the art of being able to listen. So that's what I really appreciate about you all and about the format and the way you use the format. But I want to talk to you, Elaine, because it is Women's History Month, and you are a first, as I mentioned, and you've achieved a lot in your young life. You were the first Black beauty editor, as I mentioned, at Condé Nast, and then at 29, you became the editor-in-chief at Teen Vogue. You were the youngest editor-in-chief in Condé Nast history. Now, I know you grew up in a small town in California. I know all about you now, Elaine, because I always do my homework, which is an important thing for people to remember, I think, in any field. Always be prepared, like a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. But did you always know that you wanted to be in the magazine business?
Oh, it's a good question. I don't think I ever thought it was possible for someone like me to be in the magazine business, coming from small town, and I didn't really know anyone who had, you know, a big job or who had moved to New York City. So I just didn't even know it was within the realm of possibility, frankly, until right before I graduated from college. I kind of went on this quest to figure out what on earth am I on earth for, and I did a lot of soul searching and a lot of searching for women, frankly, that I could see myself in. And I was lucky enough to come across this woman named Harriet Cole, whose work just like jumped out at me. And I had this like audible, I don't know if it was from God or from who, but I had this audible sort of invitation to reach out.
Tell us, I think, for people who aren't familiar, because it would be fun to have you and Harriet Cole, because I actually wanted to get you all together.
Yeah.
Tell us about Harriet and what she did that so inspired you, because I was going to ask you, who are some of the women who've inspired you and opened doors for you to get you where you are now?
Yeah, well, listen, Harriet Cole is she's my mentor, my first boss. She is really the reason that I even got my foot in the door. And really, she was, I like to describe her as a multi-hyphenate before what that was even a thing, you know?
Yeah.
This is before the age of, you know, Instagram. You know, she was this kind of, this really multifaceted media professional. She had built up this incredible career as a magazine editor, starting in fashion. And then she kind of branched out and she wrote multiple best-selling books. She had a syndicated radio show, which would be like akin to a podcast right now, and a really successful one. She was on the Today Show regularly. She was doing all the things, and she had really carved out this intersection for herself in the media that where she was allowed to just be herself. And you know, she kind of sat at the intersection of Black culture, fashion, and spirituality. And I just didn't even know that you could do that. I didn't know, especially as a Black woman, that you could do that. And so I was just so enamored by her career, and her career became the blueprint for my career. And so I just cold called her. I stalked her down, and you know, eventually she made time for me, 15 minutes on her schedule for an informational interview, turned into 45 minutes of this incredible conversation. And at the very end, I said, if there's ever an opportunity to work with you, please keep me in mind. But if I never hear from you again, know that you've already changed my life. And I meant it. And then 5 months later, she called me back out of the blue and said, I have a shoot out in California. I remembered that you live in California. I need a production assistant. Can you meet me? I'll pay you $250 for the day. And I was like, I'll pay you $250 for the day. And she at the time was the editor-in-chief of Ebony magazine. So I went down there, I assisted her, and then she offered me an internship on the spot, and the rest is history. I moved to New York City to be her intern at Ebony magazine. And I am telling you, I would not be here with you right now if it was not for this woman who opened the door for me and nurtured me. And she was my boss, but she was also my mentor.
I think that's
so much.
I think that's so nice. And I think that's such an important lesson, you know, for young women, that you can just go and try to meet, you know, people want to help, I think, young women and want to mentor them. And if you reach out just for that informational interview, say, I just want to say hello, I'll pick your brain for 15 minutes. If you're persistent, people do make time for you. You know, my assistant and researcher for my book, my memoir, reached out to me because she was writing her college thesis about me. And that's how we met. She wanted to interview me. So you never know how these connections will lead to opportunities. So even if they lead nowhere and it's a dead end, at least you get to know and get some advice and get some wisdom from someone you admire. And I think people really want to do that for other women. I know that I want to do that for young women. So, find someone who inspires you, and you never know if they might be willing to welcome you into their world, even for a short period of time, and what that might lead to. And that's such a case in point, what you did, Elaine.
And what she did. I mean, I definitely had to have the courage to follow that little voice inside that said, reach out to this woman. And I almost didn't. And I sometimes think about, God, how different would my life be if I did not answer that call, that if I did not listen to that little voice inside that told me to reach out to this woman. I truly, genuinely, like, this is not hyperbole, I really don't think I would be here right now, So I think it's a testament to listening, following that voice, and having the courage to make the first step, make the first move. And also, hopefully, it's a reminder to all of us, women at any stage of your career, to be that woman for somebody else, to pay it forward. And I will say, I have the best interns and mentees, and I learn so much from them. Sometimes I think they're my mentors.
It's true. I thought I had created this term, reverse mentors, but exactly, it's not reverse mentors. It's Warren Buffett came up with that term. So I can't take credit for it, but I learned so much from young people, particularly as the technology changes, as, things develop. I've learned so much from just listening to my daughters, because there has been so much cultural change, Elaine, in the 40 years I've been in the business of media and storytelling. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, when you became the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue, you really, you changed the aperture, if you will, of what was focused on in that magazine. It might have been known as being a little more frivolous, and you really, you became a thought leader in that space, talking about things like cultural appropriation and trying to explain those these new terms to people who wanted to learn but might not be familiar with that. And all these cultural seismic shifts, I think you helped explore them. And did you get any pushback for doing that? Or why were you so fearless? Or how did you summon the courage to kind of say, I want to change this magazine. I want it to be about real things that really matter. And what was the motivation for that? That was the world's longest question, but you know what I'm getting at.
I appreciate it. And actually that topic, cultural appropriation, which we definitely covered a lot at Teen Vogue, is what connected us for the first time in person. You were doing that amazing mini series exploring these sort of hot button issues that people tend to shy away from, or that if you do engage tends to tear people apart. And cultural appropriation was one of them. And I remember feeling so honored. Katie Couric wants to talk to me about, oh my gosh, about cultural appropriation. And I just thought, man, I wish more of these kind of cross-generational, conversations were happening and in a safe environment. And it's kind of what
I learned, it was so helpful for me to have that conversation with you, and and open my eyes to things that my life experience, honestly, just had not exposed me to enough. Of course, some, because, I'd been a journalist for so long, but these are deep-seated issues that are the result of, incessant cultural conditioning. So to be able to talk about some of those things, and I went to Northwestern, I went to the University of Chicago. If anyone's interested, it's on Hulu. It's called America Inside Out. But you were so great because you were a compassionate teacher. And I think that's what we sometimes need, compassionate teachers, because instead of sort of judgmental ones that can help people along. And that was really the purpose of that whole series, to really give people the information they needed to be informed enough to really, see issues from a different perspective. But anyway,
Yeah.
so when you decided I'm going to make Teen Vogue matter, I want to address all these things. Was that scary? Did you get pushback? Were people supportive?
Well, I think the important thing to say is that it didn't happen overnight, and nothing does. I think it gets, when we see the headlines and the highlight reels on Instagram, or when we, tell these success stories, sometimes it can seem like you just walked in there with your fist up, you were fearless, you made the changes, and you're a hero. And that's not at all how it ever happens, right? Like I became the beauty director at Teen Vogue first, and I was only 25, and I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I didn't wear Prada. I didn't know a lot about, fashion photography. I wasn't sure if I, belonged in that world, with capital F fashion. But I recognized that once I saw my name in the headlines as being the first Black beauty director in Condé Nast history, I thought, okay, wow, there's a responsibility that comes with this role. And I would be doing a disservice to all the people who've sort of been shut out of mainstream media positions like this one, powerful positions like this one, if I just thought I had to fit the mold. If I thought this means I just follow the rules now and try to be like the person who came before me, which by the way was Eva Chen, who's a fabulous, amazing woman in her own right and professional who I look up to. But and so I had to lean into what was true for me, and what stories mattered to me that I thought were not being told. And as somebody who grew up in I'm come from a mixed race family, and I never saw myself represented in magazines or on commercials or anywhere in media, and it had a really negative effect on my self-esteem early on. And so I thought, if I'm in a position to change that, I have to take that seriously. And so I kind of went in with this mission of doing what only I could do, right? Like, I think, and hopefully the takeaway for anybody in whatever role you're in, is to find your zone of genius. Find the thing that only you can do and make an impact in the way only you can. So I didn't know capital F fashion like that, but I did care about inclusion. And I thought, beauty can be a really powerful vehicle to talk about and to celebrate diversity. And we can through that lens, we can explore conversations like cultural appropriation, and actually beauty is very political, and hairstyles can be very political, and there's a lot more to talk about with beauty than just the frivolous superficial stuff. And so I really went in with that mission. But as the years went on, I felt like I was able to start to find my voice and build my tribe within the company. And by the time I was appointed editor-in-chief, we were already working behind the scenes to kind of change the direction of the magazine, and I should say the brand, because the digital presence became so important, and we tested out a lot of different directions on social, on online and on social. And I felt like I don't even deserve all the credit in terms of turning around Teen Vogue. What I did was what any editor should do, is I was listening to our audience. I was studying them and what they cared about. And I was learning from them. I learned about intersectional feminism on Tumblr because of reading about what Gen Z was talking about, and cultural appropriation. I've also been educated by Gen Z. So I felt like Teen Vogue became and needed to really be a mirror and a platform that amplified the voices of this generation and the conversations that they are having, which span far beyond fashion and beauty and Justin Bieber and like entertainment, celebrity. We can care about that, and no one's shaming that at all. But I think what I wanted to do was create an intersectional platform where you could be all the things you are. You could care about all the things, and there's a home for you. You don't have to choose whether you're going to be smart or stylish, or whether you're into fashion or politics. You can be into both. And I really wanted to carve out a space for I wanted to carve out space for just how smart and multifaceted and dynamic and forward thinking this generation of young people really are. And that's really the legacy of that Teen Vogue turnaround. And I just want to salute them there, because they're still doing that work. And, you know, the editor-in-chief who came after me was also a young Black woman, Lindsay Peoples-Wagner. She was actually even younger than me when I got that job. And so that is what makes me proud. It's like, when I got that job, yeah, you know, it's uncomfortable being the agitator. You know, it's uncomfortable changing the status quo. It's not easy, but you know, the reason that you're doing that work isn't even for you. It's for who comes next.
Right.
It's to open that door and create and make sure that door is as wide as it can possibly be for someone else to come in and take the baton and run it even farther than you could, you know?
I have a friend who used to say, when you're a trailblazer, you know, it's easy to get burned. And it's true, because when you are a disruptor, you're upending the status quo. It's sometimes not easy. I'm talking a lot about that in my own memoir that I'm writing. And you can't necessarily see it when you're in the moment. But then when you kind of think back and sort of what happened and why, you realize that people, there's a lot of people who want to maintain the status quo, who will push against anyone who is trying to shift it. And, you know, I know that that's what you write a lot about in your book. It's called More Than Enough: Claiming Space for Who You Are, No Matter What They Say, which is very apropos of our conversation. Someone was just saying that they got theirs in the mail today, their book in the mail. So yay. It's a New York Times. It's not only a New York Times bestseller, but you also won the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Work. So congratulations for that, Elaine. And I know that you really wanted to give young women a blueprint for, you know, paving their own path and getting, learning the lessons that you learned during your career, at least so far.
Yeah, you know, I really relate to what you were saying earlier about kind of the role of a trailblazer. And I felt very uncomfortable with that term being used to describe me. And I thought, God, if I'm a trailblazer, then my job is to leave signposts along the way that make it easier and less daunting and less scary for the next woman or Black woman who's coming up beside me, behind me. You know, like that. If I'm not doing that, I didn't earn that title. You know what I mean? And I still don't know if I'm comfortable with it, but I did feel, you know, one of the things that you said was that you know, we don't talk a lot about the honest experience of what it is to be a change maker and to be an agitator. There's a lot of resistance that you come up against, and I think we're in a day and age right now, especially it's Women's History Month. We are all about, you know, celebrating women publicly and, you know, women's empowerment, rah, rah. But rarely do we create safe spaces to talk about, you know, the cuts and the bruises that come with breaking through the glass ceiling. And I think that if we leave that part out and we just celebrate all the first and we're just like, go girl, and we don't talk about the true experience of what it takes to be the first, and what those people went through when they broke through that glass ceiling, again, the cuts and the bruises that come with it, so to speak, then we are doing a disservice to the second and the third that's coming up behind us. The goal is to better prepare other women for things that we didn't see coming, and that we, you know, share the tools. And I'll say, like, every first woman that I have had the honor of having an offline conversation with behind closed doors, they've told me some stories that you wouldn't believe, except you would believe them because you probably lived them. But these aren't stories that we talk about publicly. There's still this sort of shaming and silencing, that this shrinking that happens, and we think that we got to carry the mantle for all the first and make it look good, even when we're hurting, even when things happen that were not fair. And I just think we got to create more space for us to be honest about what comes with being first, and with the goal of making sure that these kinds of experiences don't get handed off to the next woman who's up. And so that's kind of the responsibility that I felt when I wrote that book. And listen, I'm still in the beginning. my last chapter of that book is, this is just the beginning. I know I'm still young. There's so many things I want to do. I don't know it all. You know, I want to learn from women like you, who, I mean, you have had such an incredible career. You're still killing it. I just love how multifaceted your career has been. But so you know, there will be more books. But I thought, you know what? Why do we as women feel like our stories don't matter until it's the end of our story, end of our days? Like, why do we feel like we have to be like, you know, in our 80s before we can tell our story and feel like it's significant enough? So I pushed back all of that fear and that doubt, and I said, you know what? I think women's stories matter. I've been telling them for my entire career, and you know what? It's time for me to tell my story and then continue on, you know, because there's a lot more to the story.
You know, and I think a lot of things have changed, and I'm curious if you think they have. I feel like the confluence of Black Lives Matter, Me Too, Time's Up, this recognition that we haven't been doing a very good job on representation in so many arenas. I sense and feel, and personally, I believe I've witnessed a real sea change in how we are making the world more inclusive, welcoming more points of view. Not enough. We have still a lot of work to do. But I feel like, Elaine, the dam has started to burst. And I'm curious if you feel that too.
I do think things are changing for the better. I do think that there are sort of, as I fall off my chair, I do think things are changing. I think that there are conversations that are long overdue that are finally being had. I think, you know, diversity and inclusion is, you know, becoming a priority in a lot of spaces when it just frankly wasn't. But, you know, I also think there's a lot of lip service, and there's also a lot of people who just don't want to be called out for not doing the right thing or saying the wrong thing. And so there's a lot of fear, and I don't know.
Shaming. But you know what? I sort of feel like, I know maybe this is the wrong attitude. And by the way, I'm not drinking out of this. People think I'm just like, hey, how you doing? I made a cocktail with Shannon, the mixologist.
It's a happy hour at Katie's.
It's so pretty, by the way. But you know, part of me is like, if shame is a good way to force people to make change, then then that's okay. Like, fearing embarrassment, fearing being made to look bad, like, if that gets the job done, then maybe that's, a certain entree to expand the playing field. So I know what you mean, Elaine, but I also think that can be a really powerful and effective vehicle for change. Shame. I hate to say that. Is that a weird thing to say?
No, I think it's the right thing for you to say. And just to be clear, I wasn't saying there's anything wrong with people being shamed or feeling shame. I think that what's happening is that people don't want to be shamed. And so I think there's some people who are hiding out, or maybe doing and saying and posting what they think are the right things when they actually haven't taken the time to do the work and haven't actually, I think we all have to see ourselves as part of the problem before we
I understand. Yeah.
Before we can be part of the solution. And so that's what I'd like to see more of. During the Black Lives Matter resurgence after the murder of George Floyd, I felt like I saw a lot of people, posting things and while in one respect I felt really like it was time for all of us to be a part of these conversations. I wondered in some cases if these people were really taking the time to do the work where they were examining their own contribution to systemic racism in their own lives. And that's the thing. For me, I think that's the place to start, right? I think that's where it starts. It's internal work that is going to produce the right kind of honest external changes. And the same thing goes for representation in media. To your point, like, things have been changing for years now. I mean, we know that the covers of magazines are much more diverse than they were before. Same for commercials and campaigns, and it feels good to see it. But as someone who's been working on the behind the scenes for a long time, I'm always curious to know, how is that priority in terms of inclusion reflected behind the scenes, and making sure that the storytellers reflect just how diverse, you know, the picture looks on the outside. So it's all, for me, you can't change the story until you change the storytellers. It's really, it starts with who is behind the scenes, who's telling these stories. And when it comes to the work, we got to do it in ourselves first. We got to do it at home with our families, at our workplaces, at our churches, before we can go out there and I don't know, project that we're you know, we got it, and that we've changed the world, and that things have gotten better. I think we're still we're still in the work. If we're honest,
yeah,
we're still.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I think we have such a long way to go, but I feel, you know, that some people really have started to do the work, and you know, for those who aren't capable of it, that's what I mean. That, and as someone said, Brene Brown would call it guilt, not shame. But for those people who aren't, you know, at least that's another avenue for change. But I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that people have to, you don't want them to be disingenuous. You want them to truly understand why this is so important. And you know, you were talking about the murder of George Floyd, and I know that you started this 15% pledge. I think this is such an example of not just talking the talk, but, you know, walking the walk. And you are, it's a nonprofit advocacy organization. It recruits major retailers like Sephora and West Elm to commit a minimum of 15% of their purchasing power to Black-owned businesses, which is so awesome, Elaine, because I think we can all talk about change, as I said, but to actually come up with ideas and solutions that are really going to move the ball forward. This is a perfect example of that. And how is that working? And you know, Black-owned businesses have taken a real hit in the pandemic, like many small businesses. So, can you tell us what the impact of this has been, or is it hard because of the pandemic to even measure that?
Well, I first want to give credit to Aurora James, who, you know, a lot of us were feeling, gosh, so bogged down in our own sadness and devastation of, you know, after the murder of George Floyd. And I think at the same time, a lot of people wanted to take action. They wanted to do something, but there wasn't this like singular call to action. And so Aurora James, who is a small business owner, a Black woman, very successful fashion designer, said, I'm going to start with my industry, the industry I know, and I'm going to erect a solution. I'm going to put it out there on social media. And she made a post that basically proposing that all retailers commit 15% of their purchasing power to Black-owned businesses. And she tagged specific retailers. And it was sort of a challenge that she put out there. And don't you know, within days, a website went up, a full-blown campaign had been ignited. Within, you know, a short amount of time, a nonprofit was started. And that was kind of the genesis of the 15% pledge. And now there are, oh man, there's so many, from Sephora, who was the first major retailer to sign on, to Macy's, to Crate and Barrel, to West Elm. And like, you know, I was a part of helping Aurora in the beginning, kind of get this thing off the ground, and making phone calls and having hard conversations. And what we found again and again is what I was sharing earlier. You know, no one wants to be called out, and so people are afraid of even committing to doing the right thing, because they're afraid if they don't do it right, then they're gonna be canceled. And it's like, here's the thing: there's a difference between being called out and being called in. And the goal of the 15% pledge was to call in these powerful players that really have an opportunity to change, you know, to dismantle systemic racism in this particular way. And we are presenting a solution. All you got to do is say yes. You believe
that is awesome,
right? And the thing is, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, you can't say, if you do the inventory, right, and you're like at like 1% of your inventory is you know, what 1% of your purchasing power goes to Black-owned businesses. To say that you're going to commit to 15 can seem daunting, overwhelming, like impossible. But for us, it was more about saying that you are committing to this new standard, that we are resurrecting, we are erecting a new standard, a measurable metric, that you are now going to make, you're going to make this, arriving at this metric a priority, and then you commit to it and you make a plan, and we do check-ins and accountability checks, you know, and I think that spirit is what invited a lot of people to the table that might have been too afraid to commit prior to. And I haven't, you know, I want to give all credit to Aurora, because she is running that organization since I moved and started the talk. I've taken a step back from the day-to-day grind of it, but they're doing incredible work. And I just hope that anyone listening, I mean, you can erect a solution to a problem that you see, and you can generate energy around that and buy-in around that. And it could be, it doesn't have to look one way. Like, these problems are so complicated and they're so layered. So it's going to take many different solutions and many different people committing to their solution and pushing that forward for real change to happen. So I think that's for me, it was energizing to be a part of launching that nonprofit.
Yeah, I would love to actually interview Aurora, because
Yes.
I didn't realize that it was her idea. And, you know, I think sometimes people feel overwhelmed. They're like, what can we do? And I think there's so many ways, big and small, that you can address a whole myriad of problems and really have an impact. You know, I think about Stand Up to Cancer, Elaine, and this was 9 women who said, this is unacceptable. We need to speed up the pace of cancer research. These scientists need to collaborate, not compete. And they need to, you know, share their ideas, and we need to kind of mix it up. And I walked into our first telecast and I was so overwhelmed. I almost started crying because everyone in Hollywood was participating. And this was just the idea of 9 women who were frustrated and wanted change. So I think people need to kind of own their power and understand that even, you know, Shannon Watts started Moms Against, you know, Mothers Against Gun Violence. And what is Shannon's whole, I've got to get her organization right. But she was a woman in Indiana who was so upset about school shootings that she started a whole movement. So I think
Moms Demand Action.
Moms Demand Action, sorry, Shannon Watts. And I admire Shannon so much because look at what she created. So I think there are just ways that we can really change the world just when we think it's just too overwhelming and we're just one person. And by the way, if you all want to learn more about it's a 15% pledge. You can go to at 15% pledge. Is that right?
That's right.
Well, you're doing so many awesome things. I know that now you're looking to turn your book into a TV show. You've written for Grownish. You make me feel like a total, you know, somebody who just doesn't work.
Right. Says Katie Couric, who, by the way, I wake up to you every day in my inbox.
Thank you, Elaine.
I don't know how you do it all. Do you sleep?
Well, no, and I have an incredible team of mostly young women working really hard. I'm hoping I'm giving them opportunities to learn and grow and find out who they want to become and figure out what they're passionate about. So I have, you know, it takes a village, as Hillary Clinton said. So I have a lot of incredible people working on Wake Up Call, which is my daily newsletter, everybody. I'd love for you to sign up. What I love about it is, you know, I did mass media, which is increasingly an oxymoron in this fragmented media environment. But I love the idea of creating a community of women who are supporting each other, of men who are supporting each other and supporting women as well, and just who care about things, who are smart and want to understand the world and want to figure out how they can contribute. So it's been really, really gratifying for me to step out of the kind of more traditional media space that is still run predominantly, I hate to say it, by white guys who are making decisions based on all sorts of weird shit. So I love the fact that I'm able to be independent, and I can do things that I want to do, and I don't have to play the politics that are so prevalent in media organizations. It's exhausting and so such a waste of time, honestly.
I agree wholeheartedly. Oh, do I know?
But anyway, I'm so proud of you, Elaine. I hope I can say that as somebody who's been around the block a few times, but I'm so proud of everything that you've accomplished, everything that you'll continue to do. And you are a first. The Jane Walker folks picked you as a first for everything that you've been able to accomplish. And, you know, I just want to say for all of you women out there, you know, maybe you're not a first, or maybe you are a first, but if you're not, you can be the second, third, fourth, and fifth. And that is really what this campaign is all about. It's about kind of not only shining a spotlight on groundbreaking women, but also finding out what helped them along the way, so they'll be able to help people who come after them. But anyway, Elaine, this is my little cocktail that my new friend Shannon, who is a mixologist, helped me make. I'm sorry you don't have one because it's also so beautiful.
I have water.
Well, that's okay. So I want to propose a toast to you and to thank our sponsors, Jane Walker by Johnnie Walker. And by the way, you can find this recipe. It's called the Silk and Soul Cocktail. You can make it for your hubby, Elaine, and it's on my website. And next week, we're going to be talking to another mixologist. And I'm going to be having a chat with one of my favorite people, Kathy Najimy. Do you know Kathy?
I don't.
Oh my God, she is a hoot. So try to tune in next Thursday for our happy hour.
Okay, I'm there.
Anyway, big kiss to you, Elaine, and a big kiss to everybody. I'm giving you all a virtual hug from my kitchen counter, and a big cheers to all of you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Elaine.
Bye. Thank you so much, Katie, for having me. It's so great to see you every time. It just feels so good to connect. So
thank you, Elaine.
Bye, everyone.